welcome back to the channel. So I went and saw Oppenheimer, and here are my thoughts and opinions about it. This movie was crazy. I went to go see it because the cast was amazing and it's Christopher Nolan, and as a cinephile, I can't really miss a Christopher Nolan movie. Now, this movie is geared towards cinephiles and film bros, and when I use the term film bro, I mean that gender neutrally. That is anybody who's very into films. This movie is made for you. It may not be so appealing to the casual movie fan, especially since it's 3 hours long and it's a very dialogue-heavy movie. Now, the movie is more focused on its title character, Oppenheimer, more so than it is on the atomic bomb. And honestly, I think the movie benefits from that a lot. To be completely honest, I walked into this movie not expecting to care about Oppenheimer and who he was as a historical figure as much as I did when I walked out. When I walked out of this film, I had a whole new understanding of this person. And let's be clear, we do talk about him in history class, especially here in the United States, but this film really dives into the complex aspect of his character. He is not a historical figure that can be portrayed in black and white fashion, which is ironic because parts of the movie are in black and white, but he is morally gray. I walked away from this film almost feeling sorry for him, and I know that's wild because he created this bomb which killed thousands of people, but this film makes it clear how much he himself struggled with that. And if you know the story of Oppenheimer, you know where it led. It is a very tragic story, but this film really captured Oppenheimer as a human being, and that was really profound to me. Now, if you didn't know, Oppenheimer was Jewish, so there is really heavy anti-Semitic themes in the movie, and that is a huge part of the driving force behind Oppenheimer and his motives. That was something that I didn't really know before, and maybe I just didn't pay attention in history class, but that fact really allowed me to see Oppenheimer in a different light, to see that he was creating this bomb for peace because he saw that his people were being tortured in the concentration camps in Germany, and that obviously didn't sit right with him. And so he used his mind and his incredible intelligence to try to create something that would end all war. We see this struggle with Oppenheimer after the war in Germany ends, because that means that his people are being released, they are being freed from the concentration camps, but he still feels the pain of the anti-Semitism that took place in the war. And not only do we see it in Germany, but we see a little bit of it in America as well. There's this whole argument over whether or not Oppenheimer was a communist or just so far left that he couldn't be trusted, and it creates this very interesting narrative about Robert Downey Jr.'s character going against Oppenheimer, but secretly. A few other things I want to mention. First of all, the score. The score complemented the film amazingly. I was so surprised. The score swelled when it needed to, and it caused so much tension in moments that were tension-filled, and really it led me as a viewer to be on the edge of my seat and feel the anxiety that these people were feeling at the time when they were about to test the bomb, or in other aspects when Oppenheimer is heavily debating the morality of what he's doing. And there are a couple almost fantastical moments in the movie, but it's not to take you out of the movie and create this fictional narrative. It's actually amplifying the non-fiction aspect of the movie. Now, when you see it, you'll know exactly what I mean, but it's always centered around Oppenheimer debating with that moral code in the back of his head. Next thing I want to talk about is this movie does have almost a horror element to it. Now, when I say a horror element, this film would never be classified as a horror movie. What I mean is I walked away from this movie a little more terrified about the world that we live in, and that's kind of the message that it leaves you with, so don't expect to walk away from this film all happy, jolly. Also, there's a couple of jump scares in the movie. It definitely got me. Maybe it was just my theater. It was really, really loud, and there's just really long moments of silence in the movie, followed by a huge strike in the film score, which really amplifies the scene, but it did make me jump out of my skin, and I did almost feel death by the end of the movie. But when it comes down to it, Oppenheimer was a fantastic film. Go see it if you are interested in high-class craftsmanship of film and cinematography and acting. I mean, everybody who was in that movie was on point with their roles. Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh had some of my favorite character moments in the entire film, especially Emily Blunt. There's a point in the movie where she stands up to somebody who's almost being a bully, and that point was really a standout moment to me, especially since her character is almost sidelined for the first 3/4 of the movie or so. You start to see this intense stress swell inside of her, and towards the end of the film, she's no longer able to hold it in, and she is one of my all-time favorite characters in that movie. Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr., I believe, will be nominated for an Oscar for this movie. They both just fell into their roles. I saw the character and I didn't see the actor. I mean, Cillian Murphy really just became Oppenheimer, and Robert Downey Jr. really became Strauss. There was no distinction. And also, Albert Einstein was used really, really well in this movie. Now, he's not in it a lot, but the amount that he is in it is perfect, and he's utilized to what I would say is his fullest potential in this situation specifically. And the last thing I want to comment on is the writing was astounding. Now, all of the dialogue that was going on, everything that was being said, was 100% believable to be of its time and also of its situation. Now, don't get me wrong, the writing is kind of confusing. There's 1,000 characters and so much exposition and plot all just being jam-packed into this 3 hours. So it does feel very stuffed, and it will be one of those movies where you're gonna have to watch it multiple times to kind of catch everything, if you can catch everything. There's just so much going on all the time. But the writing, it was definitely a standout to me. But overall, I'm going to give this film a 9 out of 10. It's missing that last point for me because I do feel, even though it was one of the best crafted movies I've ever seen, it's also somewhat confusing, but not in a bad way. It just took away from that 10 out of 10 experience for me. I highly recommend you go watch this movie. This is a big screen experience. Please go see it in theaters. It will be completely different than watching it at home on a streaming service, which absolutely wouldn't do the film justice. So that's going to be all for today. Thank you for dropping by for my Oppenheimer review, and we'll catch you in the next one.